Blog Talk Radio.
Hello and welcome to the Alchemy Sisters. You are here with Mandee and Jennie. Hi, Jennie. How are you?
Doing pretty good. How are you, Mandee?
I'm good. I'm excited to be here as always. If it's your first time listening, we are the Alchemy Sisters, and Jennie and I hold space each week and typically invite on another healer or guest to share their experience. And the whole idea is just to create an atmosphere for people to love and learn and grow and connect with some resources for free and to promote some healing within each person. So we're just honored and excited anytime anyone joins us, and we love our listeners. And you can always interact with us throughout the week on our Facebook page. We're Facebook.com/The Alchemy Sisters. You can find us there. And, yeah, I'm just excited and honored to be here. I think the biggest thing going on right now, which I didn't realize, is that Chiron is leaving our, I guess it's the atmosphere, right, Jennie?
I think that's how you would say that, yeah.
Yeah, it's been in rotation for about 9 years, and it's been kind of the catalyst for a lot of what we like to call shadow work, which is where you're looking at your experiences throughout your life and your actions and your reactions, and you learn to shift your perception with them and find beauty and gifts in the hard times, and you find grace and ease and enlightenment. But it's not an easy road, and it's very intense and humbling, and it takes a lot of energy. And so it's really nice to be seeing that moving on, not going to lie.
Yeah, I had no clue until I saw the meme on Facebook, and I was like, this sounds good and poignant. You know, it was pertaining to, I've definitely been doing some shadow work in the last couple of years specifically, but I can take a look back in the last 9 years and see some intense shadow work. So I want to keep digging in the shadow space, but if we could lighten that up enough, that would be fantastic.
I agree. It's definitely been intense learning for a lot of people, and myself included. And I noticed a lot of people are having some strange dreams coming up, or kind of old traumas and wounds, different things that have affected them, or flashbacks to memories from this lifetime or past lifetimes. And this has been going on a lot over the past week. I have an old injury that really flared up right now. I know some other people have too. Some people are sick. So I just want to encourage all of our listeners and everyone to hang in there, because we've got a full moon tomorrow night, and it's a massive release of all of this stuff that we worked on with our soul through Ascension with this Chiron period. So hang in there, everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I would love to do next is invite on our fantastic guest. Julia Lyons has been a guest before, but we're excited to have her back today. She's the founder of Meadowsweet Healing, and she's a Shamanic Folk Herbalist and just has tons of wisdom and knowledge to share with us. So welcome, Julia. Thank you for being with us.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. I'm so stoked to be back.
We love having
you. We do. Julia, can you tell our listeners a little bit about what you do and what Meadowsweet Healing is all about?
Yeah, so along my path, one of the funny things that has evolved is I finally feel like I know what to call my offerings. So I provide earth-centered shamanic healing. I also am a folk herbalist. And, yeah, I just open and presence myself to serve people as they need it. I do in-person private sessions as well as distance sessions, and I also teach classes locally here in Colorado. And more things are brewing, but that feels like a good place to start.
I dig it. Can you, and we'll definitely repeat this at the end, will you tell our listeners how they can get a hold of you if they want to do some work with you?
Yeah, so I have a website, meadowsweethealing.com. I also have a Facebook page, Meadowsweet Healing. I have my personal page, Julia Lyons. You can friend me. You can like my page, reach out to me. My email is also julia@meadowsweethealing.com, so you can feel free to reach out there. Yeah.
Beautiful. Excellent. I do have some questions for Julia, but I wanted to see, Jennie, do you have any questions that you want to ask Julia to start with?
Well, I'm really interested in the tobacco ceremony and the tobacco workshop that you recently had or posted something about on Facebook. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so this is actually something I'm really, really passionate about, is kind of reclaiming tobacco for shamanic and sacred uses. I almost feel like it's like a really big part of what I'm supposed to do is be a spokesperson for sacred tobacco, because, I mean, we all know in our culture, you know, people are smoking cigarettes or doing dip or, you know, whatever, and we're kind of programmed to think tobacco is bad, tobacco gives us cancer, you know, people are addicted to it, and all of these, you know, kind of negative things. And so what I'm trying to do is to create workshops and kind of spark interest in people to look at it differently. You know, tobacco is used in earth-centered cultures all over the world, especially in the Americas, and they use it ritualistically and with deep, deep reverence. So about 2 years ago, my partner and I started growing tobacco, and through that and through ceremonial work that we do, the doors have opened for us to work with it within this sacred container. So I've been called to come forward and offer an educational aspect behind this where people can, you know, learn all of the different things that tobacco can offer when using it in right relation, and not only to learn it, but then at the end of the class we have our private time and private study to work with it and experiment and ask questions. So, yeah.
I love that. You know, tobacco was just that, very ceremonial and very natural and from the earth. It was industry and corporation and businesses' idea to add tons and tons of chemicals and what have you to it and create this product that doesn't even really represent the original product anymore. So we've kind of just really gave it a bad rap. And I love that you're coming in, sweeping in with that beautiful heart energy that you have and alchemizing that fear or stress around tobacco and showing people that there is a healthy way to manage it and use it as if you would sage, or use it sparingly or ceremonially. You know, it's a wonderful space that you're getting into, healing that misconception around organic tobacco.
Yeah, I just feel it's so important. And, you know, I do a lot of meditation work with tobacco just on my own, and I connect with the spirit of the plant, and I ask, you know, what is most important for people to hear about you? Or, you know, I just feel the sadness that it has for the misunderstanding and the misuse. And you're totally right about commercial tobacco. You know, after working with natural tobacco that I grow, I go around and I'll smell someone smoking a cigarette, and it's like, don't worry, tobacco, I can kind of smell you in there under all of that other stuff, you know. It's like, that is not tobacco. And when I share my homegrown tobacco with people, they're like, whoa, this is nothing like the cigarettes that I smoke.
Awesome.
I love that.
And then how would you grow that? Do you grow that in like pots out at back or in the ground, or is it warm enough?
We grow
Colorado?
it right in the ground. Yeah, so we're lucky enough that we have a nice big backyard, and the soil where we live is pretty dense, so we've nurtured it a lot over the past 3 years. But we start seeds inside so that we do allow for kind of a longer growing season through that. And so probably in about a month we'll start our seeds. And then usually after Mother's Day, the weather has shifted enough, and we usually don't get snow after Mother's Day in Colorado, but it's always questionable. But usually after that time, we'll go ahead and move them outside and transplant them in the ground, and they take off. I mean, these plants, every type, every strain, if you will, is different, but I mean, they're like nearly my height. They're nearly 5 feet tall. They're huge. And they love the strong Colorado sun.
I bet. Yeah.
I was thinking about that and reflecting. Oh, it's brilliant. I was reflecting about that as you were talking about, how it got turned into cigarettes and chemicals and all that, and how tobacco really grew so well in so many places, especially in the southeast of the United States. And so many people relied on it for work and for jobs and for so many things. And then, and now it's just almost like it's not even being used unless it's for cigarettes. And then here you come along, sharing its love and its life again. Can you tell us some of the things that you teach in your class about it? What are some things you kind of want to share to our listeners about tobacco?
Yeah, so it's really cool because tobacco is what in South American shamanic traditions would call a master teacher. So it's a plant that you can work with for, decades and still learn new things from. But it's really cool because since it is such a powerful healer, it has so many different things that it can help you with. That's one of the things I talk about in the class is you can use it for cleansing. You can use it for protection. You can use it to help you ground or also to help you be uplifted. You use it for offerings and just many, many things. And, it's really interesting that people tend to be addicted and crave tobacco because one of the things I've heard many years ago is that spirits crave tobacco. And so it's kind of interesting because humans who are, spirits in physical bodies are also craving it, but they also don't really usually have control over the tobacco they're getting and what other things are in it that are causing that literal craving. But I love to use it to commune with my helping spirits. That's one of the ways that I use it a lot is as an offering through my body for my helping spirits. North American cultures traditionally don't inhale tobacco. And most of the work that I do with tobacco is not with inhaling it, but one of the times that I do inhale it is as an offering to my helping spirits. And what I do, and this is really cool because you can actually do this with food too. That's how it was first introduced to me. So say you just went to the farmer's market and you have these beautiful raspberries. And you eat one and you're like, oh, my God, that's the best raspberry I've ever had in my life. I want to offer this next one to my helping spirits. And so you would take that raspberry and put it in your mouth. And as it's in your mouth and before you swallow it, you say, okay, helping spirits, I offer this to you. Come into my body, use my senses, use my physical being to experience this flavor, this sensation. And take this raspberry as your own. And so I do that with tobacco. And you can feel, as you start to work with your helping spirits or your guides or whatever you want to call it more, you kind of start to know their frequency or their vibration or like the feeling that you get when they're with you. And this is one of the quickest ways I find to hook you up with your helping spirits. And so I do this with food or with chocolate and with the tobacco as well.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Fascinating. Go ahead, Mandee.
Oh, yeah. I'm right there in the same, usually I'm on the same page as Jennie. But, yeah. That's just beautiful. And it made me think, we had a guest on a little bit ago in our last season, and he was talking, and his wife, about offerings to spirits, and especially, you know, on your altar. And you see that a lot, particularly in like the Mexican culture. And they're very honorable of their ancestors and spirit guides, and giving offerings. And that's something I can improve better in my life. And I never thought, like, as I'm eating food, to have that be an offering as I'm allowing it through me. Because, you know, especially, you know, Jennie and I and a lot of the people who are all in our kind of business, you know, many of us, you know, we channel a lot, and we use our vessel as a tool and a way of communing. And I just never thought to give it back that way by ingesting, because I allow the energy to come out of me, but I don't put things in through me for them. And I think that that's just fantastic. And I can't wait to start incorporating that.
Yeah, definitely try it. I mean, when I first did that, it was like a big wow for me of like, oh my God, because so this is kind of what my teacher has to say about it, which I love. But she always says, you know, our helping spirits have such impeccable manners. She often says that they're like fine gentlemen who went to British finishing school. So they would never take food from you because we have physical bodies and they don't, so they don't really need it. But that is one of the most beautiful ways that you can, you know, give an offering to them, because they don't have physical bodies to experience that with. So inviting them in, they will just be so, so honored by that.
Julia, that's a brilliant, brilliant tool. That is really highly evolved and impressive. Right when you were talking about it, I was like, wow, how much better could it get for a non-physical entity to get that visceral feel of being a human than through food? I mean, it's half of the reason I incarnate on this planet is to eat the food, you know, to be visceral and feel and experience. So I'm like, that is really nice. And I was thinking, if one were to be interested in channeling and wanting to bring that skill or technique on, nice way to lure in a potential and ask for a high-vibed one entity to utilize your space and to help you help others or to channel through you. And I think that's a wonderful tool. Gosh.
Yeah.
Impressive.
And just as you say that, I do just want to reiterate what you said, that when you are doing this kind of work, especially if you're starting to work with channeling, you always want to be very, very specific about your boundaries. And, you know, when I do that, I'm only offering it to my compassionate helping spirits, you know, and that's my team. They know who I'm talking about when I'm telling them to come in. But if you are working with other beings, you always want to specify compassionate and helping. Just to reiterate, you know, there's non-compassionate helping spirits, there's non-compassionate non-helping spirits, and so on, all these mixes. So it's really important to clarify and set those boundaries.
And like you so brilliantly said, using your discernment, this is a familiar field. This is my spirit guides, because that's how I do my work as well. I feel the frequency of the entity interested in giving me information, and very commonly it's my spirit guides or my client spirit guides. But I get random information from entities that are new, and I check their energy to see if it lines up with how it resonates and feels like my spirit guides. And if it doesn't, I say, but no thanks. And then if it does, I'll keep the information. So it's a honing of that discernment skill too. And we were talking about that a little earlier. So important, and putting the intention of it being a high-vibed entity. And, you know, when you're new at that, it's hard to tell. So you might have to play around with a few mid-range entities just to get a feel of, hey, not for me. It's like dating. Hey, I don't like to date guys that do this because I tried it a couple times. This doesn't work for me. You wouldn't have known that until I gave it a shot. So don't get, don't get scared or worried. We're not trying to put fear in the space, but use your discernment and put the intention for a high vibe out there.
Very cool. I know. I was as you were both speaking so beautifully, I was reflecting again. Who would have thought? But I was thinking very much about how our spirit guides and ancestors, and angels, there's so many, and they're with us all the time in the non-physical. And to be able to come and incarnate into the physical is a big deal. And we have an entire huge support team just to get us through it. And it's there for everyone when they're ready to meet with it and access it. And it's beautiful. And I just want to reiterate this offering, as much as you can through your vessel and by any other means to give thanks to them, because you are never alone. And there are so many compassionate, amazing, wonderful helper beings that are part of your team and chose to incarnate, along as you incarnate, be alongside of you in the non-physical and spiritually. And it's just so beautiful. So thank you, Julia.
Of course.
Julia, how did you get into this whole plant spirit medicine thing? What called you to it?
It's funny. It's one of these things that, like, as your life unfolds, you look back and you're like, oh, I guess there were things there, as I was younger, of connecting with the plants and, just being a sensitive person and being aware of energy. But I really came into this more recently in my life, and I can't remember if we talked about this at all last time I was on, but
that's okay.
Before I lived in Colorado, before I lived in Colorado, I was working a very intense corporate restaurant management job. I was working like minimum 65 hours a week, max like 85. And in New York City, and I knew that, like, this was not for me. I mean, it was super corporate, really political, and it was funny watching myself try to navigate through what part of the company I wanted to be in, because in reality, like, none of that aligns with me. Like, I don't like playing the games. I don't like sucking up to people. I don't like, selling my soul for money, which is essentially how I view that job. But when I was living in New York, I went, I think I was in the West Village on my day off, and there was a psychic. And, I've always been open and believed in this stuff. And so I went in one day, and I had a reading with her, and, all this stuff came up, and she had me do all these witchy ritual things at night and spit in this jar and put it under my bed. And I mean, it was a very strong and profound experience, because I knew that there was something happening that I didn't fully know. But one of the things that she said to me was she saw this past life many lives ago, where I was very young and there was a sick animal in a room, and I knew that it was sick, and I went over and I put my hands on it and just sat with my hands on that. I feel like it was a dog, and the dog got better. And then later on in that life, the same thing happened with a human came and was sick, and I put my hands on it, and the human, got better. And so that always stuck with me. And so a year later, I moved to Colorado. I quit the job, I moved to Colorado, and I'm finally feeling like I'm reclaiming my life and just allowing myself to be guided, where I have to live, what job I have to do, taking the ego toll of not managing or, getting these jobs that my family probably thinks that I should have, or, people I went to school with or whatever. And so I really just started being like, okay, this is my life. I don't care what my title is. I'm going to do what allows me to live in a balanced way. And so I started waiting tables and just doing like part-time management. And as I was doing that, I started working with an intuitive healer, a psychic healer, if you will. And, Reiki came up. And actually the first time that I even heard about Reiki that I can remember was there used to be this ayahuasca documentary on Netflix called The Vine of the Soul. And I watched it one night while I still had this corporate restaurant job before I moved to Colorado. And during one of the ceremonies, one of the helpers started giving this thing called Reiki to someone who was having a very difficult time. And they said how it really helped shift the energy and blah, blah, blah. And at that point, I really had no idea what Reiki was, but I knew like that's what I was supposed to do. Like it was just clear. So fast forward, I'm living in Colorado, and I talked to this healer about, you know, Reiki. And I still don't really know what it is. I just know I have to do it. And so I find a great teacher in Boulder, and I started doing Reiki trainings with her. And luckily she, you know, is a very intuitive person. And so she really encouraged us that if other things came up during the Reiki session to pay attention and to listen to it and follow that, which is really cool because I don't really know what other Reiki trainings are like, but from what I hear, some of them are pretty rigid in terms of the format of the healing. And so by her just facilitating and encouraging us to listen to our intuition, I started doing that. And then all of these other shamanic things started to come through, you know, whether it was like singing or humming songs or using a rattle or, you know, whatever. And so I started to just let those things come through and just trust them. And then after just practicing and working with that, I found my current teacher, who is Ann Drucker. She's a very well-regarded herbalist and shamanic healer. And man, for me, she is the match of a lifetime. And so I've been working very closely with her for the past 2 years. And through that, all of this other stuff has unfolded with shamanic healing and incorporating herbs and plants into the sessions and making herbal medicines and all of these things. So it's evolved quite beautifully. And like I said before, for a while I was like, I don't know what the heck to call what I'm doing because it started with Reiki. So I went, it's Reiki, kind of. And I had a friend who also does shamanic healing, and I was like, oh, do you want to have a Reiki session? He was like, okay. I mean, you know, Reiki doesn't really do it for me, but I'll do it with you, whatever. And then after the session, he was like, why do you call that Reiki? And I was like, because I don't really know what else to call it. And so more recently, I've realized, you know, it's really earth-centered healing. It's shamanic healing. So earth-centered shamanic healing is what I've been calling it. And Reiki is just one of the many tools that I use. So I say the word Reiki, but for me, calling it earth-centered shamanic healing resonates a lot more.
Yeah, I always felt like Reiki is a fantastic healing modality, but oftentimes it's an entry or an exit into other worlds, however you want to look at it, because it's like a nice space to begin and then to see where your skills unfold. Mine also went into the shamanic space more so than the hands-on healing, although I love doing that. I love your story about being in New York City, the corporate space. You were always open to, you know, psychic information, and you saw a psychic and she shares with you a past life where you are a hands-on healer, and a very powerful one. When you were showing it, when you were telling us about it, I was seeing it, and I was like, oh, yeah, totally, among thousands more where you were a healer. But that was a good one to look at. And then, you know, that like, was presented to you not long before you get introduced to the word Reiki, and then it just all opened up like a beautiful flower for you. I love hearing those success stories.
Thank you.
I got to be a extension and benefactor of that and that energy, because I went to see Julia for my first and only actually official Reiki session, and it was March of 2017 before I had gotten ankle surgery. I think I was on crutches I may have just gotten off classes. Yeah. And I was like, I connected with Julia because I met her amazing partner. We worked together and had many brilliant, soulful conversations. And I was having fun, listening to you talking about growing, tobacco together and stuff. And I remember having, conversations with him about the type of woman he wanted to be with. And it's cool what manifested for him and how the two of you are together. And it just warms my heart. But anyway, I went over to Julia's for a healing session, and it was incredibly powerful. And it was the catalyst to get me moving on my soul's most authentic path at that time. I was in a relationship that, it wasn't a bad relationship or anything. It just had played its course, and it was time for me to move on. And I was injured, and every time, ascension symptoms appear when we're not following our soul's path and what we're meant to be doing and what our heart wants most. And we get sometimes these ascension symptoms and growing pains in place of it, and your body will scream at you if you're not on track. And mine did in many ways. I had a vocal cord dysfunction going on. I'd broken my ankle. I tore all these ligaments. I had to get a tendon taken out and replaced with like a cadaver tendon. It was so messed up. I had all kinds of things going on. Yeah. And at the time I was starting, and I was working like crazy, and the universe forced me to like sit down, and I went and got this healing with Julia. And, I was hoping she would do a lot of work on my ankle because I was afraid of surgery, so I wouldn't have to have surgery. But my ankle needed surgery, and I'm glad I got it now. But what happened through that was she did all of this work over my womb space in my sacral region, and it stirred all of this stagnant energy that had been there for a long time. And it almost felt as if like my ovaries were moving around and like things were shifting and swaying, and I just felt like pulsating, amazing energy. And it was the catalyst for me to start lining back up with what my heart wanted most and clearing that channel and my creative channels. And I created this little sisterhood because I was starting to heal, and I held myself accountable, and I wrote my first affirmations for that year with Julia at her kitchen table. And I was like, how would you say this? How would you phrase it? And she was beautiful and guided me in so many ways. And I still have those affirmations, and I look at them all the time. And I'm grateful for you and for your part in my journey. And thank you, because you've only gotten better and better at what you do, and you're gifted, and you're meant to be doing this.
Thank you, Mandee, and thanks for sharing that. It's so funny because you've connected me with a lot of people that I work with now, and I often think back and I'm like, oh my gosh, that session was so long ago. Like, what was I even doing in that session, because that was before the plants, I'm pretty sure, which is like, and all of like the earth-centered things that are now like huge, huge allies and tools. So I sometimes think back and I'm like, what did I even know what I was doing? I did. It was just a different form than what I'm doing now.
It was what I knew at that time. It was pure, and it was innocent, and you were just trusting in the energies, and it was the Reiki universal love energy coming through. And I think your soul energy merging with my soul energy, and the fact that we do have similar interests and connections and people and soul tribe kind of stuff, it was the catalyst for what I needed to kind of shock me back into place and get me lined back up again. So it didn't even matter. All that mattered was your intention and your heartfelt space in holding the space. And I want to encourage that for people who are newer, more novice healers and getting to know their work better. As long as you trust and you come and you show up and you're of service, your spirit guides will lead you, and it'll always be just what that client needs at that moment, and you all grow and evolve together. And so that was the experience with Julia, and now look at what's happened. And we've got all kinds of buddies and growth and all kinds of great things happening.
Yeah. And just on that note of kind of like people who are newer facilitating, healing for others, one of the things that I always hold in my heart is this idea of, when you're the facilitator, the idea of interceding with love on behalf of your client. And that's something that my current teacher always says. She's like, if you're not interceding with love, you're not doing it. And I think about that, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And you know, in my first Reiki training, I didn't have the words for it, but that's what I felt. I mean, you could just be standing there, not attuned to Reiki, not, supposedly like not with any credentials, and you could just be holding love for that person. And what she always says is, think of, if you're not sure how to do it, think of your puppy. If you're a mom, think of your baby when they were first born. Put that feeling in your heart, and then put that person inside of that feeling. And that's what you want to hold in your heart as you're doing this work. And honestly, anyone can be a healer if they're coming from that space.
Mm. Good imagery. Good description of energy. Yeah, wonderful space to be doing any healing work, especially energy work and spiritual work, is bringing in the most utmost heartful energy, whatever that is to you, and hold the person in that space. It's brilliant. That's energy work. It's like a sentence that describes energy work.
Mm-hmm. Well, if you're just tuning in, we are the Alchemy Sisters, and we're here with the fantastic Julia Lyons tonight. You can find us on Facebook. We're known as the Alchemy Sisters. We do have a website, alchemyascensionacademy.com, but we are switching. We're starting a new kind of project. We've been talking about the heart over the ego for a long time now. It's kind of our mantra and our mission, and Jennie and I talked and decided, that's going to be the name of our new program. So we're now a new network, and we're hoping to have other shows underneath us. Heart Over Ego Radio, and we're going to be launching a Facebook page. We're going to be launching a new website where you can find our services and connect, all the people who've been here on our show with you, and we're really excited about that. So stay tuned. Jennie, is there anything you want to add about our new Heart Over Ego expansion?
I just love how it grew. Several years ago, we started with the Momentum Coalition, and then it grew into working with Drew, and what we called there at the end the Oracles of Light Radio, and it's just grown into the Alchemy Sisters, into the Heart Over the Ego network, and I love the growth that we've had, and I'm so proud of it, and that's basically what I wanted to say. I'm very pleased with it.
I just love it. I do have another question for both of you, actually, but we can start with Julia. What is shamanism? What is it to you, and what does it entail?
That is such a loaded question.
I agree.
No, it's perfect. But so many people ask, what is a shaman, and what do they do? And I don't know, whatever little aspect of it you feel called to share would be helpful for all of us.
I mean, for me, when I first started getting into it, one thing that still sticks with me today is that I have no idea where I read it or heard it or whatever, but somewhere along the line it got into my brain that the shaman is someone who is the bridge between the worlds. They have one foot in the mundane, one foot in the spirit world. And in traditional shamanic cultures, the shaman is someone who connects and goes into the spirit realm to retrieve guidance or healing or information for their community and brings it back into the community so that they can heal or grow or solve problems. And so that really sticks with me. For me, shamanism is just that. It's being aware of the spirit world and the non-visible aspects of life, and not just being in tune with that or going into the spirit realm, but bringing it in and integrating it into the physical so that we can make progress in this physical life. There's a lot of people out there as they're starting to wake up who, it's kind of hard to be in a physical body. It's hard to be human, especially in this culture and this time. And so for me, it's really the marriage and the union of that spirit world and bringing it in so there's tangible things that we can work with and heal from to better our lives in the physical.
Brilliant, Julia. It's a wonderful way to describe it. It was wonderful. I agree wholeheartedly. I feel like if I were going to use tarot cards to describe shamanism, I would choose the Temperance card, 1 foot in the water, or the Ethereal, 1 foot on the ground, while balancing both beautifully, and of course the Hermit going inside. But I agree, and when I do my shamanic work, I feel like I'm opening up to the everything, so it doesn't become past lives. Everything's parallel, and I can travel through dimensions either with or without the client, and I feel like I'm giving them a visual, like I'm the translator. I'm going into a parallel existence to retrieve information, a symbol, a token, whatever it is, and traveling through dimensions is very shamanic to me. But when I lived in Colorado, I knew a few people that were, legit shamanic practitioners, and they got real dogmatic with it. So I like your answer, Julia, and how you just opened that space up so beautifully, where if we were to have someone who has studied with authentic shamans in South America and studied the traditional texts or whatever, they get a little dogmatic. Like, you can't call yourself a shaman. Well, this is what very commonly people who study shamanism say, that you have to follow protocol and do certain things to be considered a shaman. And I felt that was kind of narrow and felt a lot like academia to me. So I was like, how can I play with shamanism but open it up bigger without a lot of dogma or have-tos or you can't? So I loved your answer to the has zero dogma in it, and that's how I feel about it too, walking in the spirit space and either taking ones with intentions to also do that on vision quests, or just doing it alone and giving the information to the client. What do you know about traditional shamanism? Have you ran across a few out in Colorado who got a little dogmatic, or no? Julia?
The Boulder area is full of every type of person on the spectrum of healers. I mean, it's crazy. And I'm very, very particular about, who I work with, who I spend time with, who I'm going to learn from. I do personally believe that if someone calls themselves a shaman, you're not the person for me to work with personally. I have had the blessings of working with people that I consider true shamans from various cultures, and they never call themselves that. But because of how they show up, I definitely consider them that, Like, I don't call myself a shaman at all. I definitely don't think I'm that. And I definitely, that it's just a weird thing. But that's something that, like, I use that term so with such discernment and such, there's very few people that I call that. But I do think it's something about being humble and having that humility that, just that they don't call themselves that. They're not claiming anything. They just show up in the space where they're needed, and they do their work, and they don't use words to call themselves anything. But I don't know, there's more there for me to look at of, maybe I'm putting myself in a box a little bit, but I think it's hard too, just with our culture and with the area that I'm living in. There's a lot of things going around. There's a lot of people working with plant medicines, and there are a lot of people that call themselves shamans, and it's just really important to discern who you're working with, however that is for you. And if you find someone who is humble, maybe they'll call themselves a shaman, maybe not. It doesn't matter. It just needs to resonate for you. But Boulder is filled with every type of person, so it is important to have methods of discernment.
which makes it so fun. You get to go play in a field of all kinds of energies and people of certain eccentricities. I loved Boulder when I was there. It's very eye-opening and learning. You learn while living in that city as if you're in a course for college or something. It's highly educational just living there.
It's so true. There's so much to experience, with getting healings from different people and just with living there and watching people and interacting with people socially. There's a lot.
Everybody deserves a Boulder experience. You get a crash course when you move there, and it's just saturated with any sort of potential growth or activity that you want to dive into, really, which is cool about it. And it's fun, but it's definitely high energy, and there's a lot going on. So sometimes, you need to take a little bit of a break. It's just like you don't want to be in New York too long or California too long. Sometimes Boulder can be like that a little bit. But it's also amazing and magic, and and it's just the same thing. You just discern what's best for your energy at the time, and that's how we find teachers. And Jennie and I talk about that a lot when we have different guests on. And it's important to follow your heart. And if you're feeling called to learn about something, finding a teacher that resonates with you at that time and feels good and feels in alignment, and then honoring and respecting if it falls out of alignment and you're saying, okay, I'm ready to go and learn this new thing now and study with this person, and following your heart and what feels the best and feels right for you at that time. Your feelings really, really help you with that discernment tool, as well as experience, and trusting those heartstrings when they pull you in different directions. And I love that. And yeah, labels, we talk about the label thing all the time. Labels are hard. And I get asked the question of, what's a shaman and what's shamanism and all of that. And I don't have a very good answer. And I loved the one that you explained to us, Julia. That was beautiful and made so much sense. And it helped me to envision so many of my own healings that I've had and that I've even done and that I've experienced with other people, or I've seen other teachers and healers lead that way. And it was absolutely beautiful and made so much sense to me. So thank you.
Thank you.
We do have about 15 minutes left. Ladies, do you want to I see we have a couple people hanging on the line. Do you want to take some calls and do some readings, or do you want to chat a little bit more?
I am open.
Let's take some callers.
Yeah.
If you guys are open.
Yeah.
All right. There's a area code 201. I'm going to bring that one on the air and see what's going on. Hi, 201. You're with the Alchemy Sisters. How are you tonight?
I'm good. Hi, ladies.
Hi. Who are we chatting with?
You're talking to Jackie.
Jackie.
It's the first time
Jackie,
I really actually caught your show. Well, I really enjoyed the conversations, and it was so funny because when you guys were first talking about even the tobacco, it brought me something from a remembrance of my childhood. I always loved the smell of real tobacco. And unfortunately, I am a smoker. But I have witnessed people do work with tobacco while they were performing rituals. And I used to always try to understand the mystique behind the tobacco. Is it some form of purification? Does it help the practitioner to clear the air, similar to sage? So, that kind of piqued my interest as you were talking. And also even the shamanism part and the plants. My mother did a lot of wonderful things with plants, and since she's transitioned, I've found some of her herbs, but I don't know the name or the uses of these herbs. But I'm trying to clean out her house and her sacred space. And I know that these herbs are not to be thrown away. And I really do want to learn more about the benefits of using plants to heal and to clean and to just purify anything. So, I was just really lingering on, just taking in what I could from the conversations, because I am at a crossroad and I have to move forward.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you for calling in, and thank you for listening, Jackie. And, yeah, I think this episode was definitely meant for you. Julia, do you have anything coming up that you want to maybe talk to Jackie about?
Yeah, well, just touching back on tobacco and kind of what you mentioned you were wondering when you saw people using it in rituals. Yes, to the things that you said, it's used for purification and for cleansing, both inside and outside, and for the space. Tobacco is a very powerful cleanser, and one of the big ways that I use it is to cleanse myself. After when I used to work in the restaurant industry, I'd come home, and I call it spiritual hygiene, which is one of the topics I teach classes about now. But tobacco is one of the many spiritual hygiene tools that I work with. If you go out to the mall or to a concert, or if you're at work interacting with a lot of people, or, things like that. And how you would do this is pretty simply by intuitively blowing the tobacco smoke around you while holding the intention in your heart that it is for cleansing and for purification. Because like I said earlier, tobacco can be used in many different ways. And the way that the tobacco knows what you want it to be used for is through your intention. And so you can do that either by just holding your intention in your heart, or, by talking to the tobacco. In the tradition I work with for earth-centered healing, I believe that when you're working with middle world spirits, which would be plants, so tobacco would be considered one of them, my teacher always says that in order for them to hear you and to feel what you're doing, there needs to at least be a whisper, so that there is some kind of vibration going out into the universe. And it can be as soft as a whisper. But that's one of the ways that I connect with tobacco, to share my intention with it. So that's about that. And about your mother's herbs, unfortunately, I don't know what they are if you don't know the names, but I would encourage you to definitely keep them. And there's a lot you can do with herbs. One of the things I do with herbs, if it's not an herb that's meant to take internally, is use it as an offering. If you go on a hike or go to a new place in nature, it's good to connect with that land and with the spirits of that land. And one way that you can do it is by bringing it an offering. So tobacco is often one that has been used for a very, very long time for that reason. But any heartfelt offering can be given. And so those herbs that you're not sure what they are, that could be a beautiful offering.
I know definitely they're for internal things, because she has them in her kitchen cabinet. I know that there were some things she used to use with baths and salves. Some of them I could recognize. But, I had some plants that she had here, and unfortunately I had these plants for like maybe 20 years. My mom has moved on in the last 8 years. And unfortunately, about maybe a month and a half ago, my husband put some plants outside and they died. And it broke my heart, because a couple of these plants were healing plants. And I only have a few snippets in the house that I'm hoping during the springtime to let them take root and replant them to regenerate what's left. And even those plants that have died off, I still intend to keep whatever is left from it and do just like what you said, because she gave these plants to me a very long time ago, and I had them. They were well, and they were thriving. But he put the plants out, and they died in one night from the cold. But to make a long story short, I'm in my mother's home, working at her home, but I don't live there. And I'm trying to create a very sacred place for her and also keep the home and the family. And there's been a lot of resistance. So I know tomorrow is a special moon, and I want to set my intention and do some type of purification ritual. Just want to see what you ladies can tell me or offer concerning that.
Well, Jackie, just really quickly here, this is Jennie talking. I'm just getting the direct impression, and I do some channeling work, and I'm going to do some translating for you because your mom's energy is stepping in, and she wants to say something. She wants to say, I appreciate your intent around the physical of what I left behind, but of more importance and more value is the feeling, the frequency, and the energy that I've left behind. So she's saying, take it, she's just talking about your nervous systems and your adrenal and the stress of trying to hold her memory in these physical things. Physical things are just that. They're things. They're temporary. She is saying she appreciates your sentiment, but she's also saying don't over stress it only because what is me is a non-thing anyway. I'm in the non-physical. I'm with God, however you want to say it, heaven. She's saying there's no thing physical here, but she's saying she loves your sentiment, she loves you, she loves your intention, but just don't stress yourself out too hard on something that's really quite temporary, and that is things.
Okay.
Yeah, and I just have a few kind of angel messages for you and kind of from your higher self. They want you to know that this is all happening for you right now, not to you, and it's to kind of crack you open and set you on your path a little bit more. And they're saying that, you're so passionate and they love that and it's amazing, but if you catch yourself overthinking it, don't worry because you're already doing it and you're already on the right path and you're facing your true north and where you need to be going right now. About the triggers, they do want you to pay attention to that and see what's going on with the triggers and allow it to be a mirror for you and for your growth because, you're being tested in a lot of ways right now and you're doing a great job and you're being so patient and your angels are so proud of you and you're allowing yourself to fully go through this and to grieve and to feel and to love, and your soul wanted to really experience that for your growth right now. And triggers, are very much opportunities to heal. And so while you're in this space, you have the option to kind of look at the things that are triggering you. They want you to look at it very, from your higher self version and from the outside and see how you can grow in it. And then the last message is just that you're very much a mystic and a high priestess and a teacher, and if you're not already doing that, it's a big part of who you are in your soul's path, and you're going to learn so much through this experience that's going to align you with that. So they just wanted to kind of pass that on to you, sister.
Thank you.
Yeah, they said that they were talking about that when she first started talking. She's a healer. They were showing me hundreds and hundreds of past lives where she's played in ritual herself, drumming circles, dancing, entrancing, all kinds of spiritual work. So you are a healer, whether and how you display that in this life is your choice. So that's probably going to satisfy you on a high level is playing ball in the healing field, and it's a huge field. You might have to sit on it and think what you're interested in this lifetime most.
I received that. I have seen that in my spirit. A lot of things that I've learned through my grief and some very dark times since my mother transitioned, it has brought me back to that in more ways than one. I mean, I questioned it all along the way, like, why me? And I know that certain times when I'm fully rested, at least when I'm fully rested and I'm feeling like stable, I've heard from Spirit I've seen spirit. I've had a communication with my mother just for a brief, mere moment. I saw her in the house, and she was actually kneeling down helping me one night. And it was during the last eclipse. And it was so strange because there's certain times at night when you least expect it, I'll get the feeling to want to get up and go over there. But, I would be afraid to go out at night by myself. But the night that I did go over there and I spent a considerable amount of time there, I turned around and she was in the house with me helping me clean up a mess that someone left. And I wasn't afraid or anything. Matter of fact, it kind of like let me know that I'm doing what I can, but I'm not alone.
Wonderful.
I have seen myself in past lives or in past situations doing the drumming, the circling, the music, the chanting, and connecting to a higher source. But, as I walk through everything that I'm going through right now, especially with my family, my relatives who have been at odds with me, I realize that there's something that they see in me that I wasn't seeing in myself. So I'm just now embracing what you're saying. Definitely with the plants. Like I love gardening. I love talking to plants. I love communicating with plants. I know plants have powerful energy, as well as water and stones. Anything that deals with Mother Earth, I know it has powerful energy. Powerful energy.
Amen.
And these are the things that matter to me most, even with the home, because the home has a beautiful piece of land around it that needs to be nurtured and loved. And she used to love when I used to do it, and I just want to continue it. I don't want to give it to someone else or let someone take it away from us because of other people's negligence. I'm walking through the stress of it all, and I'm healing as I go. I'm healing and hurting as I go. So I want to get to the place where I can heal myself so I can heal those around me. And, sometimes that's a very, very lonely walk.
Well, I think you answered your own question. I think you answered your own question. You said when you are taking care of yourself and sleeping well and getting what your body needs, you become more psychic. So if you'd like to become more aware, your body is showing you how it does that best, and that involves watching your stress levels, watching your adrenals, watching where your mind goes, watching what you eat, watching how you think. Jackie, thank you so much for calling. This is just an hour show.
Thank you so much.
Everyone,
I appreciate listening to it as well.
We appreciate you. Thank you so much. And I just wanted to tell everyone listening that we're here every Monday, 3 p.m. That's Pacific Standard Time, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Every Monday we have a new guest on, a new healer, a new revolutionary energy here to help us save the planet. And we appreciate everyone listening, everyone calling in. Julia, thank you for showing up. Thank you for elaborating on topics that get a little confusing sometimes and making it easy for us to see and feel and understand. We appreciate you. And thank you, Mandee, for showing up how you do. And all the listeners, we're here again Mondays, 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can find us on Facebook, The Alchemy Sisters, and our website is alchemyascensionacademy@gmail.com.
All of the love and light. Thank you all for tuning in. Have a wonderful week. And yes, tomorrow is the full moon. That means things are falling away. It's a big one. I encourage you to make a list of all the things that are falling away with this full moon and with Chiron, and to be at peace. And so it is. All of our love and light always.
Good night.
Good night.